This is a big rich town, yeah. I just come from the poet's part. Bright light, city life, I gotta make it. This is where it goes down, yeah. I just happen to come up hard. Legal or illegal, baby, I gotta make it.
I'm oftentimes asked what my definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion. People often say DE&I, and I've noticed that the letters DE&I, they continue to, we keep adding letters to it. Back 10, 15 years ago, it was just D&I, diversity and inclusion. We've added equity, but I've seen in some places where they've got DEIJ, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, or DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. So we got to be careful that we just don't keep adding letters, because while letters are important, we could lose the strength and the meaning. And how can some of the things that we discover, how can we have them be folded into some of those letters? So to me, diversity, equity, inclusion, they're all verbs. We've used diversity as a noun. People say, representation, and they'll use E and equity as a verb, and inclusion as this noun. But the problem when you use D, E, and I as nouns, there's no action. No one's doing anything. Right? So these verbs, they have to be verbs so that they do more than just become tokens, become symbols and statues. So diversity, and everyone has their own definition, and it's okay, but make sure your definition is a verb. Make sure that the way that you think about diversity, or your company and organization thinks about diversity, from the framework of it's a verb, it's a thing to do, for us to do. It can become part of strategic planning, which I have organizations work through and think through, because it's an action item. This is how we do this. When it's not part of a strategic plan, then it gets left off and it becomes a nicety or the right thing to do. And the hope is you bring in some speaker or some training around bias, and it's supposed to change the whole organization, how they think, feel, and move related to those terms, right? So diversity, I define it as a verb, is our efforts, the company, us as a collective, our efforts to increase otherness in our organization. Our efforts to increase it. What are we doing to increase otherness in our organization? And otherness in our vendors. Otherness in our clients. And then otherness in the ways that our community is represented. What is our efforts to increase the otherness, right? So when it comes to talent pools, when you say that you've changed the language on the job application to be more inclusive, I think that's a great first start. But then I'm going to ask you, where are you looking for talent? We use LinkedIn, we use Indeed, we use all of these traditional platforms to find talent. But talent you're looking for that's more diverse may not be in those spaces. So where are employees, desirous of jobs who have disabilities? Where are they looking? Where's that LGBTQIA+ community? Where is their preferred platform? Where's the preferred platform for our Asian American Pacific Islanders, our Latinos, our Blacks? Where is the preferred platform? Just because your preferred platform is LinkedIn or Indeed does not mean that's the preferred platform for the identities and the communities you're looking to increase representation. And so that's just talent pool. You think about the hiring. Once you got the talent, when the talent comes in, they're like, yeah, we want the job. What do you have that makes that person that said yes to your organization and has several identities? How do they fit? How will they fit into your culture? Right? So there's the intersectionality of our identities. You may visibly see that I'm a black male, but what you don't see is that my father is from Barbados, migrated to New York. My mother's from the country of North Carolina, right? And grew up in a rural environment where there were no stoplights, there wasn't a McDonald's, there wasn't a 7-Eleven, and if you wanted to go buy groceries, you ran across the street to my grandmother's bodega. She had groceries and she pumped gas. Like, that was their world, right? My father's family coming from Barbados, many who had been brought up in kind of British culture, many of them were Catholic. My mother kind of grew up in a more Baptist, Protestant environment. So now you're talking about my identities is not what you visibly see only, but I've got Caribbean roots, and I've got rural roots, and I've got city roots. So how does my identity show up in the workplace? And can I be who I am in this space? Am I comfortable to show my Bajan flag? Am I okay to bring in my shrimp and grits, right? Am I okay to use certain language that was language we used in the streets of New York growing up? When I see someone, some people say good morning, hey, how you doing? I wasn't raised that way. I say, what's up? That's my way of engaging in conversation. Or I'm trying to get your attention. I'm, New Yorkers, yo. In a traditional work environment, what's up and yo may not be what they're looking for. And so if that becomes the case, then what do I start to do? I start to code switch. Hold up, but you're an organization that said that you want to increase diverse representation, but then I gotta come in, I gotta code switch. I've gotta hide parts of my identity to fit into the culture and climate of this set organization? No, I ain't trying to do that. I want to be in an environment where I can be me. And here's what's going to happen. I tell people, organizations, this all the time. How do we increase representation? We put together a strategic plan. We hired more people of color in C-suite positions. There are more women in C-suite positions because less than 4% of C-suites are held by women. Like, how do I increase representation now that I place leadership that's more representative of our demographics today, women and people of color? But that ain't enough. Just because you have a woman in a C-suite role doesn't mean that every woman gonna come into the organization and feel comfortable because it's a woman in a C-suite role. Just because there's a black president doesn't mean that every black individual is gonna come into the organization and be like, I wanna be here because the president is black. Like we experienced that with Obama. Like our former President Barack Obama, everybody was like, oh, life's gonna be different because we have a black president. Not understanding that our black president had to deal with so many devils on so many levels that he could not get to some of the issues that were remaining present. So how do we get there? Well, we get there by creating a culture that everyone is accepted and everyone is embraced. That's nothing to do with who the C-suite person is, who the president is. The culture of the organization is you belong here. Your unique otherness belongs here, and I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you in ways of employee resource groups, ways of affinity groups. I'm going to show you the way we celebrate the rich culture of our staff. I want to show you how we do that through career advancement. I'm going to show you how we do that through pipeline programs, or more HBCUs or Hispanic serving institutions, or all women colleges, we're working with all of those entities to bring in talent. And once they get here, there's an opportunity for them to continue to grow, right? The word homophily. Everyone's looking for their homophily when they get to their job. Homophily is I'm looking for me. When I get to where I'm going next, I'm looking for me. Not a person who does exactly what I do, but I'm looking for someone who resembles or looks like me, right? Beverly Taylor wrote a book a long time ago called Why Are the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? Well, in the 300 or some pages that she wrote, I'll put it into one sentence. People are just looking for themselves. They feel comfortable when they see themselves. So I'm going into an organization and I'm looking for someone black, or I'm looking for a black male. That's what I'm looking for. That's my sounding board, my safety. That's the person I'm going to find out in the first week, like, hey man, tell me how it really goes down here, right? So everyone is looking for themselves, and that is irrespective of color. That's everybody. You can be a white male, a white woman, an Asian student. You're looking for you when you step into the organization. And if you don't find you, your question is, are you looking to increase representation in this organization who look like me? And if you are, please don't set me up to be the token person to do it. Why should I have to be the person to help you increase your representation, right? That should not be part of my job unless it becomes part of everybody's job. Right? No matter what color, what nationality, national origin, sexual orientation, if it's all of our jobs to recruit, absolutely, let's go, let's get it. But we can't do that until everyone who has an identity feels as if their identity is accepted in the organization. That's how we start to increase our representation, talent pools, hiring, retention, right? Those buzzwords, recruiting, hiring, retention. All companies are struggling right now to figure out how do we increase diverse representation. And it's not just increasing how much you pay a person, it's how does that person feel when they enter your building? And does that person want to go back to their community and talk good about the organization? Yo, you need to come work here. Like, it's dope. Does that happen? And how do we measure our effectiveness? How do we know what our applicant pool looks like? Have you created voluntary questionnaires where you're asking for race, gender, disability, veteran status? Are you asking those things in a voluntary questionnaire? And not because you're trying to snoop and not because you're trying to weed out great candidates. You're doing that because you want to be able to see year to year, is your applicant pool increasing in diverse representation? Is your hiring increasing? And what does your retention numbers look like? Yes, exit interviews I hear about, but do you do stay interviews? You start to hear about someone who's ready to leave. Do you meet with that individual, each person, and say, what is it going to take? What do you need to stay because we want you here? Stay interviews is just as important as exit interviews. That's how I think about diversity.
This is a big rich town. I just come from the poet's part. Bright light, city life, I gotta make it. This is where it goes down. I just happen to come up hard. Legal or illegal, baby, I gotta make it.
I never took a straight path nowhere. Life's full of twists and turns, bumps and bruises.